Hello everyone, welcome back to the homestead. I don't really have any updates for you for this video. Kip ended up hurting his ankle about a week ago and has not been able to walk around. He's okay, but just hasn't been able to do much. Plus we're in the middle of an unusually long heat wave, so it's just not been the best weather for doing much of anything outside. We are trying to keep the garden alive, watering everything by hand every other day. And of course, just keeping everyone fed and doing all the normal cleaning keeps me busy, but not much forward progress on the homestead these days. On the homestead, you just kind of have to do things in season as you're able to. So this is a season of trying to stay cool. We're in an off-grid tiny house with no air conditioning, trying to keep the garden alive and just do what we can. So anyway, I thought today I would just answer some of the questions that have been coming in for us that I haven't been able to get around to. If you hear buzzing, the Japanese beetles have arrived, and I'm sitting right under our wisteria, so they are buzzing around quite a bit. Alright, so the first question actually involves many questions, and that's along the lines of natural home remedies. So I'll just kind of break it up into multiple different questions, and of course I'll give the disclaimer that I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving you guys any kind of advice here. I'm just sharing what we do as a family and what's worked for us. Real quick, I wanted to mention that at the end of the video I'm going to share some of the herbs that we're growing in the garden one by one and how we use them. Alright, so for the common cold, we do things like avoiding sugar and getting plenty of rest, of course. I like to make elderberry syrup, usually in the fall, and then I also freeze some of the berries so that if any time through the winter we need it, I can make some more syrup. And so that's really simple. I just heat up the berries, the elderberries, in a little bit of water, and then you can add lots of different things like cinnamon sticks, dried ginger, echinacea, and you just simmer that in a pot, kind of reduce it down a little bit, and it becomes the syrup that if you'd like you can add some honey to make it more palatable for the children. I don't really have an exact dosage for that. I just give a little bit, a tablespoon or two, depending on the size of the child. If someone comes down with a cold, something that helps the throat is a little bit of raw honey and lemon mixed together. That works well for soothing the throat. And I think the biggest thing that we use for common colds is eucalyptus essential oil. That can be mixed with a little bit of coconut oil and made into a rub that you can put on the chest, put a little bit under the nose, and that really relieves congestion and helps to make coughs more productive. And of course, herbal teas are great for when you have a cold as well, just to boost the immune system. So something with echinacea, lemon balm's a great one. There's lots of soothing herbs that are great for when you have a cold. All right, next question is, what are some good alternative natural antibiotics when you've got some kind of an infection that you're fighting? Garlic comes to mind first. Garlic's a great one, and we like to use alicidin, specific garlic. If you are able to just do raw garlic, maybe crush it onto a spoon with a little honey or something like that. That's the best way, but I find that really hard to do the raw garlic. Also for infection, if it gets really bad, we use grapefruit seed extract. Again, echinacea and elderberry are really good at boosting and supporting the immune system in the case of an infection. Avoiding sugar, again, that's not helpful if you're sick with any kind of infection. There are some essential oils that are really great to rub on the bottom of the feet for colds, infections of any kind, and that's clove and cinnamon. For most people, you can just put a couple drops on a piece of tissue and rub them on, but many people are sensitive, so you have to be careful about putting any essential oils directly on the skin undiluted. So be careful about that, do your research, and make sure you test that. All right, next is stomach bug. Any kind of stomach issue that involves throwing up, it's difficult. You can't really take anything, and so again, for that we would use something on the foot, an essential oil like clove or cinnamon on the foot, and then just do your best to stay hydrated. One way to stay hydrated if you're having trouble keeping anything down is just to rinse the mouth out with water for a little bit and spit it out. And then of course just take little tiny sips. Once you can keep little bits of water down, then peppermint tea is a really good one to help soothe the stomach when it's upset. Alright, so for postpartum, relief or easing that time. A couple things that I've found were really helpful is one is a tummy wrap. So putting a tummy wrap tightly around the stomach area just helps support everything, and it really helps to relieve some of those afterbirth pains. You kind of have to take it on and off depending on if it's in the middle of the summer or not. It might get a little bit too hot, but that's been really helpful. And then also the After Ease tincture is really great, and I've used that for the past 4 births, and that's a really good one. And then if you deal with engorgement, water, water, water. You want to drink like 3 times the amount of water you normally drink, maybe 4 times, I don't know. Just a lot of water when the milk comes in really helps with engorgement, and it helps prevent mastitis. So that's a simple way to prevent mastitis and to really help when that milk first comes in if you deal with engorgement. All right, bee stings or any kind of bite or sting, the first thing we always go to is plantain. And it pretty much grows anywhere. We've got a ton of it where we live, and so I just grab some, rinse the leaves off a little bit, and then I chop them up and kind of use a spoon to get some of the juices out, and then just put that directly onto the sting or bite and reapply every hour or 2, depending on how severe the sting or bite is. Sore muscles, that's one that Kip actually deals with quite a bit. I deal with it a little bit, and every once in a while some of our children actually get a little bit sore too. So we just do massage. We haven't taken any classes, so I don't know if we're doing it right, but it seems to help. So sore muscles, definitely massage. My husband can't tolerate peppermint oil, but if he could, I would use peppermint oil mixed with a little bit of coconut oil to make a little bit of a rub, and that could help soothe muscles as well. Sometimes just stretching out a little bit will also relieve muscle pain. So that's what we do for that. Let's see here. Next question was burns. What do we do for burns? That one, pretty simple. First is just to rinse the burn in cold water immediately, as quick as you can. And then after that, depending on the severity of the burn, raw honey or egg whites. Both work really well. Joseph, when he was a little guy, actually got a really severe burn on both of his hands, and we used the raw honey. It just healed up so quickly. You can't even tell he was ever burned. So raw honey for burns. I don't think we've ever used egg whites, but I know people have said that that's worked well for them. All right, last question on this topic is how to deal with migraines or headaches. My go-to essential oil is peppermint oil. Again, you have to test these oils on and see how your body responds to them, so go lightly. Always dilute them with a carrier oil like coconut oil first. For me personally, I'm able to just put a drop or 2 direct with no dilution on my wrist, rub my 2 wrists together, and then rub them both down on my neck and up on my temples, being very careful to avoid the eyes. And I tell you, I've prevented many a migraine using peppermint oil, and usually it only takes 1 or 2 applications. You can usually apply like every hour or 2. After 1 or 2 applications, the headache has subsided and it doesn't go into a migraine, and that's wonderful. All right, so now I'll just share what herbs and things we have growing in the garden and how we use them and what we use them for. For the most part, we use the flowers and or the leaves of the plant, and I dehydrate them and then use them in like a tea or an infusion, or some of them I dehydrate and use for a healing skin oil. And I'll share that recipe at the very end of this video. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order through the different herbs that we have in our garden. So the first one is anise hyssop. It is actually one of my absolute favorite herbs in the garden because I love drying the leaves for tea. It has a licorice taste to it that I just love for tea. But medicinally, it's also fantastic. It's good for the heart. It's a good decongestant. It's good for digestion, all types of skin issues. It's even been used to reduce fevers. So it's just a really great all-around herb to have in the garden. Next is basil. It's an herb that's grown from seed typically. I grow about 4 different varieties that I love. And it's usually one that's used in the kitchen, and you don't really think of it much as a medicinal herb, but it's great medicinally as well. It's good for stomach issues and digestion, and it can help with itchy skin if you've got some kind of poison ivy or rash. It can help soothe the itchy skin. Then there's bee balm. Bee balm grows really well here. However, because of our humidity, certain varieties can get like a powdery mildew on them. So I actually have a new variety in the garden. It's called Purple Rooster. We also have an older variety called Red Crimson, and that's done really well also, but I love the purple color of the new variety that we have. And bee balm's really good in tea because it's got that really nice bergamot flavor. If you like kind of an Earl Grey type of flavor, bee balm's really good for tea, but it's also good for digestion, it's calming, and it's good for the skin. Alright, calendula is an absolutely wonderful flower to grow. It has tremendous skin healing properties. It's an annual and we grow it by seed, but it does self-seed in our area, which is nice. It pops up all over the place nicely and we don't really have to plant any seeds. Chamomile is another one that we grow in the garden, and likewise it self-seeds, and that one is a very soothing herb. It's really good for digestion, for helping to go to sleep at night. It smells wonderful. It can also be used to help soothe sunburn. Lots of uses for chamomile. Chives. Chives are another one that just grow super well pretty much anywhere. However, you do have to deadhead them if you don't want them to take over your garden. They're not only beautiful and great for bouquets, but they're medicinal as well. Chives are really good for circulation and digestion. Got a lot of birds going on. A lot of birds right now. And I don't know if some of you might have heard our cow in the background. I think there must be a cow in heat somewhere because he is billowing away. Next one is comfrey. We grow a ton of comfrey, mostly for our animals. We feed it to our geese and our cows and sometimes to the chickens. We also use it for composting, but medicinally, it is really good at skin healing. It can knit skin, get skin back together very quickly. Just make sure you never put it on an area that could be infected, but it's also good if you use it in small amounts internally to help heal the digestive tract. We add it to our cold pressed tea sometimes in the summertime, just in small amounts. Dill is the next one, and that's one that self-seeds in our garden every year, so I don't really have to plant that. We love actually using it in our flower vases. It makes a good filler. But beyond that, and using it in the kitchen for cooking, it also has some great medicinal properties. Most that involve digestion. So if you have constipation, diarrhea, cramps, anything like that, dill is a great one to add to some tea to help relieve some of those issues. Alright, echinacea is next. We dry the leaves and use that mixed in with teas whenever there's colds or flus going around. Echinacea is one of the best immune boosting herbs that you can grow. It grows so easily, and it's also got the bonus of the beautiful flowers that are great in bouquets. Alright, next is elderberry, and both the flowers and the berries are excellent. Just make sure that you always get the mature, fully ripened berries, because the immature berries, they can be toxic. And so using the flowers and mixed in with teas for colds and coughs and things, and then the elderberries is what I turn to if pretty much everyone's sick and it's a really yucky sickness. And that thankfully doesn't happen very often, but it's really nice to have both wild and cultivated elderberries all over our property. And like I said, before we gather those and make some into syrup and freeze them, and that way we always have elderberry available. If I had a good system for drying, I would also dry some too, but we don't have the best system yet. For right now, the best way I've found to dry herbs is, if we still have our cook stove going, I will hang them in paper sacks back behind our cook stove. If I don't have that going, then we use either Kip's truck or his barbecue. Actually works really well. So just put everything in paper sacks and dry them out that way. Alright, next herb is fennel, and this is actually our first year growing fennel, and I'm really excited I just found out that it actually increases breast milk. I've used nettle in the past for that. I don't often need it, but every once in a while when I have a flu bug or something, I'll take some nettle to increase breast milk, and we don't have nettle around here, so I'm glad to know now that I can use the fennel for the same purpose. I believe it's the seeds that actually are used for that. That's good to know. The seeds are also good for stomach issues, as many herbs are. It It helps to ease headaches and migraines. It's great for feminine issues, helps improve arthritis, helps with sleep. So it sounds similar to chamomile. It's got a lot of different uses, and I'm looking forward to drying that and using that as well. All right, garlic's one that I already talked about how you can use it. It is a natural antibiotic. Great for all different ailments, and of course wonderful in the kitchen. And we grow that in all of our strawberry beds. It does really well with strawberries. It's super easy to grow. We plant it in the fall and harvest it about right now. It's actually almost ready to harvest. We just lay them out to kind of dry out and then store them in our pantry inside. Ginger is new to our garden this year as well. We use ginger for lots of things. I use it for circulation, and it's a great one for digestive issues. If you're feeling a little nauseous, some ginger tea is always helpful. So this is our first year trying to grow it ourselves. I'm not sure how it's going to do, but I'm hopeful that we'll have some ginger root this fall from our own garden. That will be used probably mostly in teas. Ladies Mantle is another new one to our garden, and I got it mostly just because I wanted to use it for flower arrangements. It's got beautiful sprays of flowers that are kind of a beautiful yellow lime color, and the leaves are super unique. But I also just found out that it has got a lot of medicinal properties. It is good for feminine issues, digestive issues, all kinds of skin issues. It sounds like it's kind of one of those herbs that does it all. And another do-it-all herb is lavender. We only have 2 lavender plants in the garden right now because they struggle in our zone 6 here in Missouri, but I have Phenomenal and Provence, 2 varieties that have overwintered for 2 winters now and are doing really well. So that one's great for all sorts of skin issues, digestion, anxiety, helping to sleep, lots of different things. Plus it's absolutely beautiful. Okay, here's another do-it-all herb, lemon balm. Are you guys starting to see a pattern here? Most of these herbs pretty much are good for any kind of ailment that you have, which is incredible to me. Lemon balm also is antiviral. I'm not sure how many herbs are, maybe most of them are, but I know it's antiviral, and it helps relieve stress, good for digestion, eases headaches, all sorts of things. So lemon balm is one that we will always have in the garden. It's one that doesn't take over. Some people say to be careful where you plant it because it can take over, but where we live it doesn't. It stays in a nice clump. So the lemon balm will stay, and we use it a lot, especially in our cold pressed tea in the summertime. Nasturtium, that's a fun one. It is an annual grown from seed, and it has quite a few medicinal properties too. I know a lot of people plant it in the garden to kind of help with, in a way of companion planting, to help deter bugs and things around squash and other plants, but it can be used medicinally. The leaves are edible, flowers are edible, nice peppery taste. So it's good for any kind of throat and respiratory issue. Also good for the skin, any kind of skin problems. So that's a really fun one that's easy to grow from seed and adds a great benefit to the garden as well. Oregano, that's actually another natural antibiotic. It's easiest to take it in the essential oil form in a capsule. So that's another one that can be used if you've got a serious issue. It can also help with bringing balance to the gut microbiome, getting rid of the bad guys, helping the good guys succeed. It's also good though for headaches, for cramping, for insomnia, digestive issues. It can ease pain and stiffness, so that might be a good one to put in your massage oil if you want to add that with the peppermint. It's also good for reducing swelling for cuts and wounds. Parsley. Parsley is one that we grow from seed every year. I wish it would self-seed. We have overwintered it before, but we just end up growing it from seed every year, and that's the perfect herb for digestion. That's why you see often a little garnish of parsley, because no joke, it helps you process your food in many different ways. So parsley is a great one if you have digestive issues. And peppermint is also a good one for digestive issues. We've got I think 5 different types of mint in the garden right now. Our favorite is apple mint and spearmint. Mountain mint's really good too. It's a nice mild mint that is a little bit better behaved than some of the other mints, but it is definitely one of the best herbs along with parsley for digestion. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Rosemary is another new one to the garden, and it is another one of those do-it-all herbs. So I'm really hoping that we found a variety finally. It's ARP is the variety of rosemary, and I've never been able to overwinter rosemary before, so we'll see. Maybe this time we'll be able to overwinter it, and it'll actually get big enough to where I can harvest from it. Thyme, we've got creeping thyme, and it grows beautifully along one of our raised beds and with our walking onions. And it's one that I just love using in the kitchen, but it's also right up there with eucalyptus. And it's easing of the respiratory tract when you've got colds or bronchitis, that sort of thing. We can't grow eucalyptus here, so if I needed to fall back on something else, it would be thyme. I think we have enough growing that I could actually even make a little bit of essential oils from it because of the abundance that we have. But just putting it into tea, putting it in a pot and warming it up and then breathing in that steam, it would be helpful. You could also add it to a coconut oil or something like that to use as a rub. So lots of different ways to use thyme. And it's one of those that just grows so well and doesn't need much of anything. It's not fussy, super heat tolerant, drought tolerant, grows really well here. Yarrow, that's another one that's new to our homestead. I grew it from seed last year and now it is everywhere along our swale. We moved it out of the garden for the most part. Still have a little tiny bit in the garden, but I moved it out to our swale where it could just go crazy, and it has. And yarrow is just so useful. It's good for colds, it's good for reducing fever if you need to, although fevers are good. You don't want to reduce them unless they get way too high. It's good for skin healing. It even has been used to stop bleeding, and I've never used it in that way, so I'm not sure exactly how you would use it, but that's something I'm going to look into. So anyway, yarrow is one that will go crazy in your garden. It's probably best to put it on an edge somewhere or out of your food growing space so it can just flourish and go where it wants to go, and then you'll always have it. Well, I think that wraps up most of the herbs that we're growing in our garden. It seems like a lot, but when you add 2 or 3 every year for about 9 years now that we've been gardening, it really adds up. And what a magnificent creator we have to have given us so many wonderful plants with such benefit to our bodies and to our taste. So really thankful to be able to grow so many different herbs to enjoy in teas, for cooking, and of course medicinal use as well. So if all these different varieties seem a little bit overwhelming to any of you, I'm going to put up on the screen now my top 12, if I could only pick 12, or if I was just starting a fresh new garden, 12 herbs that I would plant right away. I will say that we don't use all of these herbs regularly, but we have used each of them in some way, shape, or form over the years. And what I love especially about the perennials and the ones that self-seed is that even though I may not need them this year, I know that they'll be back next year, and perhaps I'll have more time to make use of them, or there'll just be a situation where we really need them. So that's what I love about these herbs. They're just a fantastic investment, really. Something that's going to be there for you if you need it. And in the meantime, all the different variety and color that you have in the garden, diversity, things that many of them are beneficial for bringing in good pollinators and beneficial insects and things. Herbs have so many different uses and are such a benefit in the garden. Alright, so before I close out the video, I did say that I would share my healing skin oil recipe, and this is what we use for dry skin, for anti-aging, for minor scrapes and bumps and burns and things. So every summer I gather and dry about 6 different herbs, may become 7 or more. Since we've added some new herbs, I might add to this list, like yarrow would be a good one to add. But anyway, it's calendula, and I use the calendula flowers for their gentle cleansing healing properties. Globe amaranth mix called gomphrena. I use that because it's a really great antioxidant, so helping with getting rid of wrinkles. Comfrey I use because of its awesome cell renewal properties. I use the leaves of lemon balm for its cleansing and healing properties. Chamomile is very soothing and anti-inflammatory, and then lavender with its gentle cleansing properties. It's also soothing, healing, helps with growing new skin cells. So once all of these have been gathered and dried really well in my paper sacks, then I infuse them into some kind of an oil by usually just by heating them on a very low heat in the oil for a few hours or longer. just because the mild heat helps draw out a lot of the properties in the herbs. And then I strain that into a container. And it typically lasts for a good few months on the shelf. It could be stored in the refrigerator to last even longer. Some of the oils I like to use are coconut oil. That's a great one for sensitive skin. Almond oil and jojoba oil are great for really dry skin. Olive oil is another one that I've used. It does tend to have quite a strong smell of its own, so if that bothers you, that might not be a great one, but it's one that we always have on hand, and so I have used that one. And then a couple other that I haven't tried yet, but I may try, are avocado oil and MCT oil. So pretty much whatever oil I have an abundance of at the time, that's the oil that I use to infuse all the herbs into. And then I have in the past also mixed in some beeswax, just to make it more like a salve. But sometimes that can get a little bit too hard in the cold winter time. So most of the time I just use the infused oil. It can be stored in something as simple as a little mason jar with a lid, or if you have a leftover pump bottle or anything like that from store-bought items, those work well too. There's lots of different containers that you can put it in and use for just about everything that you need for your skin. Okay, that was a lot of information. Hopefully that was helpful to someone out there. Thank you guys for joining me under the wisteria today. As always, thank you to our patrons who make these videos possible. If you've got a favorite go-to remedy, please share it in the comments below. Until next time, we pray blessings over you and yours. And whatever you do, do it with your whole heart. What'd you just find?
Tons of blackberries there, Betty.
Whoa, those are huge. Look how big those are.
Yes.
Good job. Was that fun?
Yeah.